Now, General Petraeus, I think, speaks for many when he said this: "The Western world faces the greatest number and the most complex array of threats we have ever seen." In my 3.5 decades in uniform, I do not think I have seen a more challenging strategic environment. Now, I'm conscious that every generation thinks that it is living through the most tumultuous time in history, or that the world is rapidly changing and that we are at some kind of inflection point. So I do think we need to be careful not to exaggerate the threats, but our job in defence is to anticipate these risks and to adapt so that we're ready to protect our country, our interests and our people. And it's this adaptation, particularly for the Royal Air Force, that I want to concentrate on today. Now, when I've been here before, I feel quite a lot of pressure because of the calibre of thinking done here by the likes of Malcolm, of Matthew, of Justin, Jack and many others, to bring some kind of fresh conceptual thinking and kind of up my intellectual game a bit. But, as this is the first Trenchard lecture I've given as the Chief of the Air Staff, I think there are some rather more prosaic issues for me to address. In particular, the state of the Royal Air Force today and how we need to evolve. Hope that this is something that your grandfather, Lord Trenchard, the first Lord Trenchard, would approve of you. Today, the RAF remains strong and capable, but we've spent the last 25 years or more optimising ourselves for the types of conflict we saw in the Balkans, in the Middle East or in Afghanistan. We, as a service, responded well and have adapted our systems and capability for those wars. But this is not the threat we face today. We need to become match fit for the new, bigger and more important game. The Secretary of State for Defence recently said, "Unless we're ready to fight, we're not in shape to deter." And this is at the heart of the NATO thinking. To deter a costly war, we must build a credible force that foes fear and our allies value. We cannot do this alone. The RAF must evolve as part of the integrated force. Our service siblings, the whole of government, the defence industry, as well as our allies and partners are all critical to our collective success. This is a team game. We have a lot to do. The time is of the essence, but in simple terms, we need to build an air force that can fly, fight and win today, tomorrow and together. So I want to set out today some of my thinking about how we do that. I'm going to focus very much today on air rather than space, simply because of time and having recently spoken at a space conference. But I'm happy, of course, to take questions on space too. So let me start by talking a little bit about where we have come from. Over the past 30 years, there's been no existential threat to the homeland. We've pursued wars of choice rather than wars of necessity, and usually far from home. So as our main effort switched, so did our defence budget capabilities and ways of working. Our Cold War focus over time shifted to meet the new challenges of overseas intervention and counterinsurgency. The A war versus the war debate was hotly disputed the first time I worked in the Ministry of Defence almost 20 years ago. The Army, committed in Afghanistan and Iraq at the time, understandably led the charge for the defence budget to be prioritised towards delivering success on operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. While the RAF and the Royal Navy supported the Army's position, they also wanted to see investment in their longer-term programmes, such as aircraft carriers, Typhoons and F-35s. Today, that challenge of establishing the right balance between near-term and long-term success is no different. But the pendulum has definitely swung firmly towards making sure we're ready for the future fight, the one, in fact, that we actually want to deter.